Well, a very warm welcome to all of you on this post-election day. I know there's a lot of tension, a lot of distraction, but I wanted us to take a moment, and if you can, just put that aside for a couple of minutes. And I want you to think about your virtual presence, because the reality is, whatever's going on politically, we are still going to be working virtually for at least until the end of this year. And for many of the companies that I work with, there's no immediate plan to go back to the office. So if I can ask you to just take a moment and to just focus, I'm going to ask you something. And I'm going to ask you to rate your level of what I call webcam confidence. So I'm going to give you three options. So high, your level of webcam confidence, high would be you really look forward to opportunities to have your webcam on. You feel when you look down at yourself, you like the image and you are very comfortable communicating in virtual platforms with your webcam on, and it's something you have learned to do well. Okay, so that would be a high. So your webcam confidence is high. So if you can type into wherever you are watching, if this is on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, just type in and tell me if you're high. That's high. Medium would be you don't mind virtual meetings. You will have your camera on, but it's not something that you look forward to. You do it reluctantly and you think you do it okay. Sometimes you're really happy with how you look and how you project, and sometimes you think you could do better. And low would be you would like to have your webcam off because actually you find it torturous. So that is high, medium, and low in terms of your webcam confidence. So I really wanted us today to explore the concept of virtual presence and talk about why and when it's important to have your webcam on. And I've been training and speaking and doing virtual sessions on virtual presence for the last 6-7 months. And what I see is that in the beginning of March, when everybody was having virtual meetings, it was perfectly acceptable to have your camera off, even if other people had it on, and to not communicate via your webcam as well as you needed to. But as we've continued to do this, if we don't know how to communicate really skillfully by using our webcam, we miss out on maximizing our image and enhancing our exposure. So I've just finished 2 full morning sessions with a group. We had the same group yesterday morning and this morning. And the first part was understanding your virtual presence in terms of your physical presence. So for those of you who are just joining me, I'm Nadia, and I wanted to talk to you about maximizing your virtual presence. And I did a quick survey on your level of webcam confidence. And there are 3 tips that I share with everyone I speak to about your virtual presence. And the first has to do with be aware how quickly we make a decision as to your credibility and trustworthiness when you see you pop up in that square. And we base that on a variety of factors. But don't underestimate a simple factor, which is that of eye contact. So wherever you are, if you're watching this right now, I want you to take your hands and put them in the middle of your eyes. Do that. Thank you. And then draw a straight line to your camera lens, wherever that camera is. If it is on your computer, do that. If it is on an external camera, do that. I know some computers, unfortunately, have the camera at the bottom. Wherever that camera is, you might need to raise your computer up so that you are looking directly into the camera. Now, it's counterintuitive. Why is it counterintuitive? Because intuitively, I want to look down at you. I want to look at the person I'm speaking to. But look what happens when I look down at you. So right now, I'm looking down at you. Look what you see. Right now, I'm looking into the camera. So look what you see. Can you see the difference? So eye contact in person is one of the most important non-verbal tools that we have to connect. So please don't underestimate the non-verbal of eye contact in your virtual meetings. Now, there are times where you may have to look down at a slide or look down at an individual. So use your peripheral vision, which is I'm looking at you, I look down, and then I look back. So practice that. In all my sessions, what I do is I divide people into groups. We take a photograph, we look at you, and you'll be amazed how just the simple adjustment of when you're talking to someone, looking in, eye level to the camera lens, prevents you from looking like that or looking like that. So simple tip number one. Simple tip number two is please make sure that your lighting is in front of you. Time and time again, I see people speaking, and then they've got a big open window behind them with lots of light. They look like a silhouette, a cardboard cutout. I jokingly told my session today, you look like you're in the witness protection program. So we don't want that. You want lighting in front of you. And you can simply take lamps from around your house, take off the lampshade, put it in front of you. See light on your face. And then background. So I've chosen to use a studio background because I like the idea that I'm doing a show, but I have a variety of different backgrounds, and as long as they are congruent with, in harmony with the overall way you want to be perceived. So if you're doing it without a green screen, now I have a green screen and I've keyed in a background, but if you have your background that's your bookshelf or your living room or whatever it is, just make sure it is not distracting. I always say we want it to be credible, not necessarily incredible, not so incredible that it's distracting, but credible in that it looks like it's neat and tidy. Through my months of doing this, I've watched people who are very professional, but then they are either in front of an unmade bed. So you may be in your bedroom, and I know some of you are in small apartments and small places, or that's the only place in the house where you can be away from kids or wherever else. So just think about, does it at least look tidy? Take a snapshot. One thing we say in the world of professional development is that all self-improvement begins with self-awareness. So just be aware of your space, lighting, background, and eye contact. So part one of my session, which was yesterday morning, was just on your physical self. Do I look present? If I'm looking at another monitor, let people know what you are looking at so that they know, because in the absence of proper information, people come to their own conclusions. And I've been doing this work for physicians talking about telemedicine, or people in pharma, or whoever else it is. You are communicating with someone, and we don't have the organic, relaxed conversation that we would in person. It requires you being so much more deliberate. So those are a couple of things. Then session today, and that's why I wanted to do this while it was still very fresh in my mind. The session today was in fact on, and I'm looking at the comments as I speak, so thank you very much. James Hayes says his is high. Thank you, James. And when I'm speaking about high, he likes being in front of camera. And if you know James Hayes, he's a natural communicator and would. So for you, your virtual presence, James, is high. For some of you, you're saying it's medium, and some are saying it's low. If it's low or medium, you want to take it to another level. But everybody at this point of working from home and working virtually needs to have high webcam confidence and needs to be comfortable conversing on this medium. So my session today, in fact, and I'm going to give you the précis version of it, was on building relationships and how much harder it is to build relationships virtually than it is in person. So I want to give you a couple of tips once again. So you're on your call. There's 6 or 7 people. Some you've met in person, some you haven't. After the session, write down the names of the people, link in with them. Schedule a conversation with at least one of those people so that you can go from being a box to building a relationship. Because really what we are on all our web calls is often just a person in a box. And for each of us to go beyond that, there's really 3 levels. It's to go from a connection to a conversation to a collaboration. And the biggest takeaways from my last 2 sessions have mainly been around deep inner confidence. And I did a TEDx Emory talk called Own Your Confidence. So I won't go into detail of that right now because you can look it up, Google Own Your Confidence, TEDx Emory, Nadia. And I go into the neuroscience behind developing something called your positive emotional memory database. So please look that up. And confidence is so interesting because the group of people that I was talking to were all high-level individuals, all in leadership positions. And even with that, we experience a certain level of self-doubt. We all know about imposter syndrome, but how do we get to a point that we are deeply comfortable and confident? So relationships, a sense of confidence and ease with self. And then I like to call it lighting a fire, because the second part after feeling good about yourself is that showing of genuine interest in others. So as you are joining me right now, thank you so much. I am streaming live across various platforms, and I try and do this when I'm feeling inspired. And I've been very inspired over the last 2 days because I've worked with a wonderful group of people, and their takeaways I wanted to share with you around the importance of just owning your space and being confident, and how the kind of confidence that gives you permission to have relationships with people who you perceive to be in a higher position than you are starts with yourself. So feeling good about yourself and giving yourself permission. And I know these are things we've all heard before. They are universal truths. Universal truths are interesting because just because we know about them doesn't mean we apply them. And that's the goal. And I'm so delighted to have Natalie and James join me. So think about that. Feeling good, the showing genuine interest. I love what Bill Nye, the science guy, says. He says, everyone you meet knows something you don't. And Scott Peck always says, in a conversation, put yourself aside. I like that. I like the concept of putting yourself aside in a conversation where you're just focusing on the other. So that's the showing genuine interest. In this time of extreme stress, I mean, both politically, with COVID-19, there's a lot going on. Taking that moment to relax and be present. And that's something I know you've heard time and time again, but I always say just because we know it doesn't mean we do it. And then virtually, and I'm talking about both in person and virtually, but my goal today was to talk about maximizing your virtual presence, which means in every virtual interaction, do you make the most of that connection, both in terms of how you come across yourself, but also are you engaging others? Are you inviting participation? Are you building relationships? Relationships that in person were organic, and now online take a whole lot more effort. So you probably have at least another 2, either WebEx or Adobe Connect, or Google Meets, or whatever other format you're on, or Zooms. You probably have at least 2 more today. I know I do. And when you are in those calls, if I can just ask you to take a moment and be fully present. And I know sometimes that's hard because there's so much going on around you. And I'm speaking to my audiences of the last few months. This is my recap for you and my reminder to just take that moment. Be fully present, check in with yourself. If necessary, do a positive emotional memory recall. If you want more detail on that, please go to Own Your Confidence with Nadia. It's online. I don't want to be repetitive. And then take note of who is on that call and say, is there somebody I could follow up with, I could engage with? I've been working with various people since March 12th, and a shout out to all of these lovely people, from Alicia Randolph to Troy Johnson to Carol Jane Campbell to Matt English. Just all of you who've been so remarkable in helping me get to where I've got. And even with my team, I sometimes sit down and we have a chat. How many children were in your family or are? What's something from your childhood that was most challenging? What's something that you remember happily? Ask people about their past, their present and future, even people that you work with every day. You'll be so surprised. And for those of you who've attended my workshops and sessions and keynotes, my favorite question always is, what is your biggest challenge? And what is your biggest challenge is an interesting one, because people will give you as much information as they are comfortable with. So some people are comfortable with a great deal of information, and some people will keep it very superficial. But ask people and then see how you can help them. Because one thing we know about relationship building, it's as much about being a go-giver as it is about being a go-getter. Another thing on my sessions today, and I'm thinking about big takeaways, is we spoke about women, and this is a shout out to Carol Tomei, who is now the CEO of UPS, and just women who have managed to just navigate so well in the corporate world and who've managed to add value, have wonderful reputations. If you ask people about Carol, they say she is a wonderful person. All the people that I've worked with who've worked with her say she is a true servant leader. I had the pleasure of having Carol introduce me when I was the keynote speaker at a big store manager conference for Home Depot a couple of years ago. And the reason that Carol has cult-like status is because she is genuinely respected and liked. So we spoke about role models as well, people who are in leadership positions, that the people who work with them not only look up to them in terms of their skills and strengths and capabilities and financial acumen, but also say she is a genuine person. So Carol, we spoke about you on our call today, and Arlette Guthrie and Anne-Marie Campbell, and just various other role models who have been exemplary. So as we continue to navigate, think about, and I will wrap it up at this point, think about lighting a fire, which is relationship to self, how I feel about myself, how I feel there is no greater impediment to getting on well with other people than feeling ill at ease with myself. And in a virtual environment, that becomes very challenging when you've got teenagers working in the next room or babies crying. And how do you navigate all of these things, which we are having to navigate right now, and it looks like we will be navigating for a while yet. And then wherever you're at, and please, if you are watching this on Facebook or YouTube, please link in with me. If you are watching this on LinkedIn, please schedule some time to chat and see how we can connect beyond just this moment. So the showing genuine interest in others. I love what Dale Carnegie says. He said, people who talk about themselves are bores, right? People who talk about other people are, you're right, gossips. And people who talk about you are brilliant conversationalists. So just that reminder of showing genuine interest in others and then relaxing. I love what Elvin Toffler says, the less you need something, the more power you have. And just to engage on your virtual platforms, because maximizing our virtual impact requires a shift of mindset and skill set. And the ability to do that well requires that you become very deliberate. So thank you all so very much for your time today, and just wishing everybody well, and that we focus in. And, Nelson Mandela really came to mind today in terms of just some wonderful Mandela quotes that I wanted to share with you, because he was so exemplary as a leader. And if we're looking at inspiration from somebody who was the very opposite of divisive. So I'm going to end today with some Nelson Mandela quotes, who's certainly another one of my great role models. In fact, I dedicated my book, Small Changes, Big Impact. This is the book that I wrote with Kat Cole. And I said in my book, I just thought of it now and I happen to have it, which was for Nelson Mandela, who by changing one country impacted the entire world. So this is for you, Madiba. He says, a winner is a dreamer who never gives up, which of course is a really good Mandela quote. And then wherever you're at in your life today, think about, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. And one of these quotes may just resonate with you today. Live life as though nobody is watching, and express yourself as though everyone is listening. And then another one of the most difficult things is not to change society, but to change yourself. And final, as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. So wishing you a very good day, and I will end with John Kehoe, which is that weak and scattered thoughts are weak and scattered forces, and strong and concentrated thoughts are strong and concentrated forces. So to pay attention to that inner dialogue as we continue to navigate our virtual worlds.